Hi, I'm Ali Hussein, creator of Entmorph. In the previous video, we introduced the code editor, where we created code cells for all the data types available in the Namespace Commands panel of the code editor. In this video, we're going to look at actions, which are blocks of code that work with data to produce some output. From my home screen, I'll click on Create New Project. Give it the name, introducing the code editor actions, and press enter to create it. So I'll scroll down to the namespace commands. Start by adding a number. I'll click on add data, then number, to add a number cell. I'll rename it to my number and press enter. And in the number editor, I'll just give it the value of 10 and close the cell. Now I'll go back up to the namespace commands and I'll add a call action. So I'll click on add action and then call to create the call action cell. From the select function dropdown, I'll type range and then click on the range function. And I'll rename the cell to my range and press enter. So let's scroll down to the code panel. We've created a call action, which calls the range function. The range function takes one or more arguments. The one argument version returns a range of numbers from 0 to the argument. So let's add an argument. Click on add, scroll down, and select my number. And let's just click on run. And we can see that the output is a range of numbers from 0 to 9. So let's add another call. I'll scroll back up, and this time I'll just use the cell commands. I'll click on insert action after and select call. If I scroll down to the select function menu, I want to find the map function. So I'll just type map and select map. I'll just rename the cell again, scroll back up, and rename it to inc-range and press enter. Now let's scroll down to the code panel. So we want to call the map function, and we need to pass it at least 2 arguments. The first argument is a function, and the second is a sequence to call that function on. So let's just add the arguments and then I'll explain how it works exactly. So I'll begin by clicking on add, scroll down, and I'll select function from the menu and select the inc function. And for the sequence, I'll click on add to add the argument and select my range. Let's just scroll back up and close the action editor. So we're calling the map function, passing it a function and a sequence. And what this is going to do is it's going to increment the value of each item in the sequence. So our range sequence is from 0 to 9. And when I click on run, the result of calling map is a sequence from 1 to 10. Now let's just go to the top of the editor. I click on go to and top. So from the go to cell panel, you can see we've created 3 cells: my number, my range, and inc range, to produce something which is relatively simple. But more than that, we could have done all of this work in just a single cell. Well, let's do that now. I scroll down to the namespace commands, and from the add actions subpanel, I'll click on let, which creates a cell with a let action. Once again, I'll just rename it to my let inc range and press enter. Now let's scroll down to the code panel. There's an action editor which contains a let action. Within the let action, there are 2 sections: bindings, where we add expressions, and a body, which returns a single value from the bindings. The default let action has an expression with an ID of new item, which is set to nil, and the body returns new item. Let's begin by opening the bindings section for editing. I'll click on the edit icon. The binding section lets us create any number of expressions, each of which has an ID. I'll start by renaming new item. So I'll click on the ID, and as I type, notice that in the body, the reference to new item is also updated. So I'll rename it to range end and press enter. This is another example of automatic reference updating, which was introduced in the last video. So a let action is another place where this applies. For the range end, I'll set its expression. So I'll click on nil, select number, and set it to 10, and close the number editor. And then let's add some more expressions. I'll click on add, and I'll set the ID to my range, press enter, and set its expression to an action. So I'll scroll down, select action, and type range to find the range function. And I'll give it the argument. I'll just scroll down, type range end. So that's the range end ID we just created above. And I'll close the action editor. And I'll add a third ID. Click on add, call it numbers, press enter. And for its value, I'll click on nil, select action again. This time I'll select the map function. So I'll click on map, and again I'll add two arguments, a function and a sequence. So for the function, I'll click on add, function, and select inc. And for the sequence, click on add, and type my range to select my range. Now let's close everything. So I'll go back up, close the bindings, and we've added three expressions: range end, my range, and numbers. So we want the body to return numbers, not range end. I'll just scroll down and click on range end and change it to numbers and select it from the select ID dropdown. Now if we scroll down and click on run, the output panel is populated with the sequence from 1 to 10, which is the same result as we had earlier with the code we created in the first 3 cells. Using a let action, we've managed to produce the same result in a single cell that we did earlier using 3 cells. A let action is very useful for performing a sequence of computations which depend on each other and returning a single result. Next, let's add an if action. I'll scroll back up to the cell commands, click insert action after, and select if. This creates a new cell containing an if action. Again, I'll rename the cell to my if. Press enter. An if action is useful when you need to return one of 2 alternative values based on the outcome of a condition. Let's begin by adding a condition. I'll click on nil in the condition panel, scroll down and select action. And from the select function menu, I'll type even and select the even function. And this is a predicate which takes a single value and returns true if it's even or false otherwise. I'll click on add and add a number. And I'll just begin with the number 0, and we can leave this editor open as we'll come back to it in a minute. Then I'll scroll down to the true expression and the false expression. I'll open the true expression, select string, and type number is even for the true expression. And for the false expression, I'll select string and type number is false and press enter. Now let's scroll down to the run and output panels. I'll click on live edit, and the output panel is populated with the string number is even. Now if we scroll back up and update the number in the condition to 1, the output becomes number is false. And that's the if action. We don't have to have just strings, we can add any expression in the true or false branches. Now let's scroll back up and close the action editor. And next, let's add a function action. So I'll click on Insert Action After and select FN. This creates a new cell containing the function action. I'll begin by renaming the ID to Product and press Enter. Now let's take a look at the function action. It has two sections, parameters and a body. The body has a default call action, which is asking for a function. So I'll select that now. I'll click on Select and scroll down, and I'll select the multiplication action and scroll back up. We'll add a second parameter. I'll open the parameters section, click on Add Parameter and call it Y and press Enter, and then close the parameter section. So our function now takes two parameters, X and Y, and our body has to do something with those parameters. I'll open the multiplication action for editing by clicking on the edit icon. Then I'll scroll down and I'll add the two arguments. So I'll click on Add, change it from the default number, select X, and that selects our X parameter. I'll scroll back up, click on Add again, click on Number, and type Y, and select the Y parameter, and scroll back up. I'll just close the action editor. Next, if we scroll to the Run panel below, notice that now there's a Build function button, where previously there was just a Run button. I'll click on that, and if we go down to the Output panel, there's now a Test function panel. This contains a call to the product function we just created. Not only have we built our function, but we can now test it to see how it works by supplying test arguments. So I'll add a couple of arguments. I'll click on Add, select a number, and type 5. Then I'll click on Add again, click on Number, and type 6, and press Enter. Now when we click on Run Test Function, we get the expected value of 30. And if I scroll back up, you can see there's an Add Test button. If I click on that, we can add more tests. Now if we scroll back up and take a look at what we've done, the product function is of course completely redundant, because all it does is it takes two arguments and calls the multiplication function on them. So we might as well call the multiplication function instead of the product function. But this is more to demonstrate how to create a function, how to create parameters, and a function body. So in this video, we looked at three important actions: let, if, and fn. And there are more actions in development which will hopefully be released by the time you watch this video. In future videos, we'll cover each data type and several actions in more detail. To start using Entmorph now, you can create a free account by going to entmorph.com, clicking on Sign Up, and submitting your details. You can access more videos on the Entmorph YouTube channel, youtube.com/@entmorph. Please share this video with anyone you think will benefit from using Entmorph. Thanks for watching.